I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, can everybody see my screen? Somebody give me a heads up in that chat. Cool. That's always good. All right, well, we'll go ahead and start. We got about half what was what signed up, but that's totally fine. And if anybody needs to bail early, I get it. Whether it's too confusing or you just got something to do, I get it. We'll record the whole thing, so it'll be on there. So my name is Boomer Sassman. I probably have met some of you at some point, either in person or virtually, over the past 9 months. Thanks for coming and hanging in there with this class. So this is going to be WooCommerce, which is an e-commerce plugin that can plug into WordPress. So WordPress is open source, meaning that it is open for anybody to go and grab WordPress and get it installed, and it's free to do that. And with that, you can build the biggest website or the smallest blog or anything in between. I'm a huge fan. If you have taken any of my WordPress classes, you know I can just ramble for an entire day about it. And so this is a slightly unique kind of offshoot or deep dive, I guess, into one of the different paths that a website can take. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background on WooCommerce and then how it kind of became, why it's important these days, when it was kind of acquired by Automatic. And I'll dig into that in just a minute. And then, and I'm looking over at my little cheat sheet that I made, we're going to go and look at, before we really dig too deep, I'm going to look at a complete alternative to WooCommerce if you're just needing like a very, very basic store. And then we'll dig kind of deep into WooCommerce. We'll do a little bit of background. We're going to install the plugin. We'll walk through all the settings. We'll talk about the different product types that are available, the different add-ons to get you to those different product types. We're going to look a little bit at themes, and I want to show you the Storefront theme that was built by WordPress and Automatic. It's a free theme that works really well with WooCommerce, and it's kind of built just for WooCommerce. You can obviously use any theme out there that you might want to. We're going to talk about payment and shipping gateways. Those are always awesome topics and stressful. And then tax-related concerns and questions, variations on products and how to create different sizes or shapes or prices based on those different variations. We'll talk about the order management as far as when you get orders that come in and how you can manage those different orders and export things. Some of the odd things about the order management system. And then we'll look at the email system. And so throughout the kind of the shopping cart and buying process, WooCommerce can trigger different emails for different reasons to different places and people. So we'll look at that. It's almost, you kind of think of it as almost like your own little drip campaign where you can kind of keep in touch throughout the process of somebody buying a product. And then at the end, I'll show you the debug option. So WooCommerce has gotten really advanced with, if there's an issue, there's a screen that you can go and just copy and paste the content and submit a ticket to WooCommerce, and it'll give them all of the information that they might need to know about your site, the server, the plugins, what's out of date, what themes you've got, so that they can get a really, really in-depth understanding of the issue and how to help out with it. So it's a really cool thing from my perspective that they've done that. They've built it that way. And that's a good segue into this next little bit. So WooCommerce is this plugin. I'm sorry. This is a good segue into the background of WooCommerce. So WooCommerce was built originally as a theme, okay? And so you could get WordPress set up, and then you could go and get the WooCommerce theme. And it was built by a little web company, couple people, and it was their attempt to roll an e-commerce capability into WordPress. There was a lot of different e-commerce plugins back in the day that were specific to WordPress, and WooCommerce it kind of trickled to the top for a lot of good reasons. And so a little bit more about why, or to define this arena, I guess. So if you're going to sell products, if you're going to sell a physical product, a digital product, an event ticket, any of those types of things, you've got some options. You can go to Shopify, you can go to BigCommerce, you can go to Magento, Etsy, and there's a handful of other e-commerce solutions out there. WordPress is an awesome platform, and there was this theme that was built called WooCommerce. Well, the problem was that there was a lot of people out there that were on WordPress, but they had a theme that they liked. Maybe they paid a lot of money for that theme for their website, and they wanted to add e-commerce to their site, but the alternative, but the plan at that point was, well, you got to change your theme and you have to really rebuild your entire site almost. So there was a lot of pushback, and finally the developers of WooCommerce, the theme, said, we need to turn this into a plugin. And that was a really significant moment, at least if you kind of geek out about this stuff, where you no longer had to rely on their theme and all the capabilities built into it, but you could build your own site with your own theme, like Divi, for instance, like we talked about last week. And then you could add WooCommerce as a plugin into the mix. And so that kind of uncoupled WooCommerce from the theme side of stuff. And it became a plugin that was kind of standalone. Well, that was significant. And this was a number of years back. I'm not sure exactly when it was. But then the other thing that happened is that as more and more people started to look at e-commerce as an option for either their primary business or a side business, side hustle, whatever it might be, at the same time, Shopify and BigCommerce were saying, we're the best and we're the only option. And WordPress was sitting back on the sidelines kind of watching this. And finally they said, this is just wrong. Like, everybody's bad-mouthing WordPress and its ability to do e-commerce. And so therefore we're losing a lot of potential people that could be on WordPress, and they're going to Shopify and BigCommerce. So WordPress, and more specifically the company behind WordPress, which is called Automatic, they decided to acquire the company Woo. So when that happened, maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, it kind of gets blurry at this point based on when that happened, but they acquired the company and they rolled them in underneath the Automatic umbrella, or the WordPress umbrella, and dedicated resources, money, developers, support, and said, you know what, we're going to own and manage Woo, and we're going to show the Shopify and BigCommerces of the world that we too can play in the e-commerce space. And so for me, for years now, this has been the go-to. Part of that because I love WordPress and everything that they're doing as a company and a platform, but also it really is the most flexible, and it's still open source. So you don't have to buy WooCommerce, just like you don't have to buy WordPress. Now, the caveat to that is once you get into the marketplace and all the extensions, you then do have to buy certain things. So there are add-ons that we'll talk about in just a little bit that range from, you know, things like shipping add-ons and payment add-ons, all the way upwards to subscriptions, how to market. And those add-ons they do cost something. A lot of them are about $79. I don't know why they picked that price, but there's a lot of WooCommerce add-ons that are right at about the $79 mark. And that's based on like one site. And if you want multiple sites, if you want to use that plugin on multiple, then you might need to buy an extended license. So that's called the freemium model. The plugin itself is free, WooCommerce, and it's sitting on top of an open source platform, WordPress, which is also free. But you're somewhat limited. You can't just do everything that you might want to do with that WordPress WooCommerce site. You sometimes need to buy the add-ons. So I wanted to bring that up early on because some people have this idea of like, oh, I can just run and live in the WordPress ecosystem and never pay a dime. And that's not necessarily true. But at the same time, you should, you know, respect the people that dedicate their lives to building this and give them $80 for the year for that plugin that they spent hundreds or thousands of hours working on. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of set the stage about some of the background with WooCommerce. They're now owned by WordPress. That's great. The biggest thing from my perspective that happened when that happened is the documentation became extensive. WordPress is really good about documentation and making sure that people can get to it. And so when WooCommerce was purchased and brought in-house, the documentation was a big part of that was built out. So with that, I'm going to pause for just a second and talk about an alternative option. If you don't want to go the WooCommerce route, I want to go ahead and mention this, especially if we run out of time. And I'll do this briefly, but there is an alternative. If you have one or just a couple products, and it's pretty basic, and that is you can still build a WordPress website and you can just set up a form. And let's say you have one product and it's one price and you have one payment mechanism like PayPal, and there's no complicated anything. Maybe you don't even need to ship it. Maybe it's just like a digital download or something like that. You can go the WooCommerce route, and I'm happy to explore that and kind of talk about that. And then you can have digital products and physical products and variations, and you can have some that are more complex than others. But if you truly just have one simple product that you want to sell, WooCommerce might be overkill, especially if you get over the next 2 hours and you're like, that was a lot of things that Boomer threw at me. I just want it simple. You can use Gravity Forms, which is a form plugin. Gravity Forms, I do think you have to pay. I don't think there's a free version of it, but it's like $100 a year. And with this plugin, this page will load here, you can build forms on your WordPress site. And these can be basic contact forms, or they can be really robust product forms. So I have a site. The reason why I bring this up is because I have a dropship business. I'm happy to tell you all about it at some point if anybody wants to. It's a really interesting story, I think, and it's a really hands-off business in the sense that it is truly dropship. And there's one product. It is this fiberglass oil pan kit, and you basically it's one product. It solves a problem. People come here, they fill in the information, and then it processes them through a payment system. End of story. That's it. And so the shipping is handled by us, and the payment is taken, and we don't have to change too much or give too many people too many options. So that is the route. I want to not waste too much time on this, but if you don't want to do a full-blown WooCommerce store, you can go that route. And if anybody's thinking about that, I kind of jumped around there a little bit more than I wanted to. So send me an email, boomer@bigboomdesign.com, and I'll give you a little bit more information if you want to head down that path. So as always, or as often as I can, I'm going to teach this class as a live demo. And you know, typically and historically, pre-COVID days, when I would teach a class, everybody would bring a laptop and you would actually be building a website or building a store or building a blog or whatever it is alongside of me. But some of you probably have 2 monitors. Some of you might have more. Most of you probably have 1, or you're on a laptop. And it gets really challenging through this type of medium to watch me on one screen and watch the demo and then try to keep up on the other screen. So that's one downside since COVID and all the classes that I'm teaching is these demos are you just watching me and then maybe watching the recording afterwards to kind of get a refresher as far as how we did what we did. But having said that, I'm going to go through and we're actually going to build out this website. So I set up a site right before I started this, and I have done nothing to it as normal with these classes. I've done nothing to it. I turned off a couple plugins that were kind of loaded by the server, but I haven't loaded WooCommerce yet. I haven't loaded any themes. I haven't created any pages or posts. There's nothing. So this is a from the very beginning type of build out that we're going to do. And I like doing that because there's always this question when folks come into a class. It's like, well, what have you done to make this easier for the demo or for the class? And I haven't done anything. This is literally from the very beginning, and I'm just going to walk through the whole process. So also, as I said before, I'm not going to run through the typical build a bunch of pages, build a menu. I'm not going to do as much of that stuff as I can hold off on as possible. We might need to pause on the WooCommerce stuff, tweak some WordPress settings, but I'll narrate that as I do it if I need to. So this process starts with logging into your WordPress site, going to the plugin screen, adding a new plugin, and we're just going to search for Woo. Now, as you'll see, there are 1,925 WooCommerce related plugins. This first one right here that's at the top left is the true WooCommerce. That is what we're going to load in here in just a second. And you can see it's built by Automatic. There's over 5 million active installs. And then there's all these other plugins that do other things. If you took either Pre-Camp or WordCamp from me and the other folks that taught WordCamp recently, a couple weeks back, we talked a lot about blocks and the block editor. If you have Divi, you don't use the block editor, you use Divi instead. There's some advanced search capabilities. There's pricing tables. There's all kinds of stuff. We're probably not going to have time to dig too deep into any of these. My main goal with this is to do a deep dive into WooCommerce and follow as many of these different paths as possible, or at least as many as makes sense. So I search for Woo. I'm going to go ahead and click Install Now. It's a pretty quick install, and then we click Activate. All right, so one of the really cool things about WooCommerce is that because, again, it's now owned by Automatic and WordPress, not only the documentation, but the assistance and the guidance that is now built right into it is done really well. WordPress since the beginning has really tried to keep the platform very approachable and easy to jump into the mix with if you're a newbie in this and very non-tech savvy. But at the same time, if you are very tech savvy and you have a massive dream for a store, you can do that as well with the same platform. So you can obviously skip all this stuff, but we're going to just walk through this. So get the store up and running quickly. Say, yep, we're going to follow your little tutorial here. All right. The next couple steps are going to ask us information about like where the store is located. This is basically pre-populating a lot of the settings. And I'm going to put in our address, at least our address for the next handful of months while we still have an office. Let's see, here we are, North Carolina. This option specifically is going to help figure out taxes and the tax rate within your state. Likewise with the with postal code. So this is going to be used, this information is used for both tax calculations as well as shipping calculations if you end up doing that. I don't really know what this set up a store for a client, what that turns on or turns off, so we'll move past that. This is basically allowing them to track some usage. If you've taken any class from me, you know that I'm a little bit on not on the conspiracy theorist side, but I'm pretty realistic about what is and what is not being tracked and whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm going to not opt in to let them track this. The site's never going to go live, so it's not a big deal, but if you can always opt out of tracking, it's probably a good thing just in life in general. All right, and so the next thing is the category that it's going to put your site into. There's some interesting ones that have popped up. So like CBD has become a big thing in the past handful of years. I'm actually going to go and look, one of the example sites that we're going to look at is the Franny's Farm, which is a local CBD company. And I don't know exactly why they've kind of called out that industry. It might be related to other add-ons or other settings that it needs to put in place or not put in place based on the restrictions of that industry. Whereas a lot of these others, I think, are maybe going to help push it's going to maybe offer up a theme that pushes it in one direction or another, or some plugins that might push it in one direction or another. So I'm going to go with, let me scan through this real quick, and I'll just do home, furniture, and garden. I don't really know what type of site I'm going to build out here. I'm just kind of doing this on the fly, but it'll be fun. All right, this next screen, this is handy. This is kind of, again, I mentioned that WooCommerce is a freemium concept. And so that means that WooCommerce is free. And then there's premium plugins and add-ons. And so we can see those right here. If you wanted to have a site that does subscriptions where people can get on a weekly or monthly or annual subscription, that could either be where you're going to send them a product on a regular basis, or that could be that would typically be the scenario, is you've got a thing that you're going to send them every month. And it doesn't have to be a physical product. It could be like a digital download as well, but there's an add-on for subscriptions. There's an add-on for memberships. So if you want to create what's called a paywall, where people have to give you money that before they can access any content, that's what the memberships would be. Bookings is also an example that I'm going to run through. We've got a website called ridethefarm.com. It's a equestrian and motorcycle B&B up in Virginia. Cool company, and so they take in bookings. There's another client that we might look at, Regal Ride, that does beer and wine and distillery tours down in Hendersonville, and so she needs to take in and let people pick days and the number of people and things like that, and the type of tour. Bundles are just groups of products. And then the customizable products, I haven't dug in too deep into this one, but it lets the user have some level of customization. So let's say, for instance, you're going to do a business where you're going to screen print t-shirts kind of on demand. You would go that route. Sherry asked, what happens if you select other on that previous screen? I have no idea. I think it's basically just saying, I want to kind of give you some stats about the industry that I'm in, but I don't fall into one of these buckets. A handful of these screens are like that. They're just like, hey, help us figure out why you're using this, so that they can kind of cater, moving forward, cater around education compared to food, compared to, you know, other types of businesses. So I do want to click this downloads option here. And so most of us are probably, you know, we've got a physical product that we're trying to sell. And this could be as simple as, you know, you setting up your own like little mini version of an eBay, or this could be, you know, products that you make, or it could be things that you are a vendor for that you're reselling, for instance. And then downloads are exactly that. You're basically saying, I've got a product that costs this much money, and once the money has transferred over and the card has been charged successfully, then kick the user over to a screen that's going to let them download something. If that would be great for something like an ebook. I have a shipping container home design packet that I sell. It's another kind of passive income stream that I made all these shipping container home designs in college, and then I bundled them all up and I put them in a zip file and I sell it for 10 bucks. And so that's an example where you can deliver a zip file or an app or a program or something like that. So I'll do physical products and downloads. Otherwise, it's going to try to push me over and like put in a credit card to buy a particular add-on here. All right, how many products do you plan to display? We'll keep this simple. We'll just do 1 to 10 again. I think they're just trying to get some benchmarks on, you know, who's using WooCommerce and for what reasons. And then where are you selling? And this is going to, depending on the option that I pick here. So if I say I'm not selling anywhere else, it's going to give me options compared to I have other platforms, and then what are those other platforms? And this again is trying to kind of craft the suggestions that WooCommerce is going to give you about what the next steps are that you might need to get this thing truly dialed in. I'm going to say yes, in person at physical stores and or events. And then what's the revenue? Let's shoot high on this one. Let's go 10 to 50. And then these next ones are going to be little add-ons that if we leave these selected, it's going to either add a little WooCommerce add-on or a separate little plugin. And for the sake of, for the ease of this class, I'm going to turn all of these off. All right, we're looking good. Okay, this next screen is about what the site is going to look like. And again, if you've taken a WordPress class from me, you know that I'm not a huge fan of pushing people into the theme selection early on. It's a really good idea to get a handle on WordPress first and just how to navigate it, some of the basic settings, pages, menus, posts, all that kind of stuff. In this case, products as well, before choosing a theme. But I am going to go ahead and click choose on this one right here. And this is the Storefront theme that I mentioned in the intro. Storefront is also, it's built by Automatic, and I believe it is. I'm not positive about that. I'm pretty sure that it is. And it's a theme that they built to kind of couple directly into WooCommerce. Whereas a lot of other themes, they might accommodate WooCommerce. This one was built specifically to handle WooCommerce. And then we've got a couple down here that are paid versions. And then again, you can kind of filter through paid, free, and all. So I'm going to say choose on the Storefront theme. Question from Sherry. For Divi, would you have that installed first before installing the Woo plugin? You can. The ordering of that doesn't matter. I doubt having Divi installed would have changed that last screen. It's probably still going to try to push you into one of those themes. You can just bypass and just ignore it. By default, that top left square that I just had on the screen, 2020, that was the active theme. And so it might show Divi as your active theme there. I'm not sure about that, but you can always activate it at any point. And really that's true about, you can change your theme at any point, at the very beginning, through the middle, or as your site grows. Okay, this next one is about a plugin that's called Jetpack. Jetpack is also a plugin that is built by Automatic, which is the company behind WordPress and WooCommerce. So Jetpack and WooCommerce are kind of the two main plugins that Automatic has built, manages, and offers. And it's not a horrible idea to turn on Jetpack and link it to your site. You can see a couple things here. So they do store management on the go. So basically, Jetpack will give you kind of a little conduit via your phone to get to your website and manage things. And that's true whether you're using WooCommerce or not. Automated sales tax, that's obviously very, very helpful. And there's some other plugins that we'll talk about. Tax Jar is one of them that is relatively cheap and takes care of the tax headache related to the selling online. And then speed and security, I don't know how much I believe that. Speed and security of your site is not something that just a simple plugin can handle. A lot of the speed is related to the server that your site's on, and then security is related to things like SSLs, which give you the HTTPS, which you have to have if you're running any kind of e-commerce, but you should have even if you're not. So because of that, I'm going to click no, again, because it would kind of push us through a sign-up process. And I think Jetpack, you have to pay $5 a month. They might have changed that, but I don't want to kind of derail before we even really get started here. Okay, so it's saying, okay, your store's set up now. Your headquarters is set up. And rather than click this X, I'm going to just walk through and see what it's trying to talk to us about here. So they're going to put us on a mailer and send us info about that. It's going to have metrics and data. Again, if you've taken any of my classes before, you know that I'm a big fan of Google Analytics and a lot of the other tracking tools. And so, yeah, you can get data inside of WordPress and WooCommerce, but you really should not rely just on that. You should, especially if this is your sole source of income or a primary source of income, you should kind of step up to the challenge of learning a little bit about Google Analytics, because it's got an entire e-commerce conversion tracking and goal funnels and all this stuff. So that's a topic for another day. Okay. The next thing that they have here is this, let's finish the setup. And we're going to go through and continue to do this, but I am going to take a moment and just pause. I'm going to check my little punch list here. Yep, we're doing good. I'm going to go ahead and open the front of the website. So I just held down the control key, clicked on the name of the site, and now I went to the other tab, and this is what I've got. And so this is as basic as it gets. We have one page called the sample page. We have one post called Hello World, and we have no products. At this point, we do have a shop page, a checkout page, a my account page, and a cart page. And those pages got created in the system by what we just did, by installing WooCommerce. And so those are kind of your standard 3 or 4 pages that you're going to, that people are going to need to interact with in one way or another. And we can click through and go to cart. Nothing's there. We can go to checkout. Nothing's there. My account, we are logged in, so it knows that, and it's got details about my orders. So at this point, this screen and the data that it's trying to show to us is kind of specific to it. Well, it is specific to the user that's logged in. But this is really helpful if somebody is coming back to your site and they want to see their past orders or get updates on an order that they just placed, or if they want to go back and access downloads that they signed up for, or update anything. This is all like the front end user screen essentially that you could drive people to. When people log into your site, if they do have an account on your site, they are going to automatically be redirected to the My Account page. The sample page, this is not specific to WooCommerce. This is just built into every WordPress site. And then shop is where our products and or our categories are going to show up. And what we're getting ready to do is create our first product. So I'm going to go click on this next option down here. One thing I do want to point out is that in WordPress, there are multiple ways to do the same exact task. You can come over here to new up at the top, and there's the ability to create a new product. You can go down here to products and do new right there. And in this case, we've got this nice little quick links trying to guide us through this. So we're going to do add a new product. This is a brand new screen. I just went through this whole process about an hour ago to make sure I knew all the new stuff, because it constantly changes and it sucks to try to teach people and then get completely stumped. I'm sure it will happen at some point over the next hour and a half, but so far so good. So this creating of products, you can either create one manually, which is what we're going to do. You can import, and they have a CSV file or an Excel file that you can download and then go in and fill in all of your products. If you have a physical store somewhere and you use any kind of point of sale system or a POS, you could probably export from that point of sale, get an Excel file, and then remap the columns: name, price, description, weight, shipping, inventory, SKU, all different things. You could remap that file and match up with the WooCommerce file, or you can copy and paste that content, and then you could import, and it would create all of your products all at once. At least that's the plan. And then if you're going to migrate, you can, from some other type of store, you could pull that in, and it might say, you know, if you're migrating from Shopify, here's the file type, or here's your process, and it might guide you through that. All right, we're gonna manually create a product here. All right, and again, it's gonna walk us through. This is something not specific to WooCommerce. This is just a WordPress kind of tooltip, little pop-up. And so, I realized just a minute ago as I was talking, I have a folder on my computer that has a bunch of stuff I'm going to put on Craigslist. I went through and cleaned my basement out, and I just need to purge. And so I've got a bunch of like car parts and things that I don't even have the cars anymore that those parts are to. So this one is going to be, I've got a set of old wheels that we're going to use in a second here. The next thing down, so every product needs a title. This is true about pages, posts, products, whatever type of content you're putting into WordPress, you must have a title. So we've got BMW wheels. This next section down is the kind of the typical like WYSIWYG is what this is called. And here's where you'd put in the long description for whatever your product is. So I'm just going to put in long description goes here, and you might be wondering, well, where does the short description go? And it's going to be down below in a second. The next thing here is the type of product that we're adding. And so by default, we've got these 4 options. We've got simple products, which we're going to start with just a simple product and keep this as simple as it gets. You've got grouped products, which is pretty self-explanatory, but you've got multiple things in a group. You've got external or affiliate products. So if you are a blogger, let's say, and you have an Amazon account and you get, you know, and you write a blog post about hiking gear that you've used and you want to send people to go buy the product on Amazon that you're reviewing, you can sign up and get an affiliate link and get paid to send people to Amazon or anybody, but Amazon these days seems to be the main affiliate company / website that people are working with. And then a variable product is a product that has options. So sizes, colors, sizes and colors, we'll just go with that. But any type of variation on a product. And those variations can affect the price, affect the image, affect a lot of different things, or it doesn't have to do any of that. If you just need to say small, medium, large, and all the prices are the same, you can still use a variable product, and it creates one product that can be split into those different paths, rather than creating 3 separate products that need to be managed all separately. If they're essentially the same thing in either different colors or shapes or sizes or locations or whatever, you can use variable product to do that. And we will dig deeper into that because that's kind of one of the most common, it's one of the most common product types that's not a simple product. But for right now, we'll stick with simple product. We've got this virtual checkbox. So check the virtual box if it's a non-physical item. So for instance, anything that doesn't need shipping at all. We'll leave that unchecked for now. And then downloadable, that button specifically, that shows up because of the checkbox that I checked during the setup. And so if we have, you know, an ebook, for instance, like my little shipping container ebook, the zip file, we could click that, and that's going to turn on some information right here about where that product is. It's going to let me upload that file, how many times people can download it, how long they can be able to download it for, things like that. But again, we're keeping it simple. So I'll turn that off. Let's see, prices, these wheels, $100. Please, somebody give me $100 for these wheels. Short description down here. Oh, and actually, before I move on, there is a sale price option. We'll do 95. And what that's going to do is it's just going to have the price with a little strike through. And then it's going to say it was this, now it's this. So that's good use for the sale price. And they do also have a schedule option, which is kind of cool, where you can say it should start this discounted price at this point and then stop at this other point. The short description, not getting too exciting here, but short description goes there. And so when you actually go and look at a product page, once this is said and done, you typically have, the site, the product page loads, you've got your picture, and then to the right of it, you've got like the price and then a little brief description. In this case, it's called the short description. And then down below is where you would put in more of the details. An example of that would be, let me go ahead and jump over to, just to give an illustration of what I'm talking about. Here we've got the product image. This is where the short description goes. So we've got the title, the price, and then that right there specifically is the short description, compared to down here at the bottom where we might have more content, pictures, and stuff like that. All right. Product images. So again, going back to kind of our punch list to make sure you've got this down. Every product needs a title. Every product needs a short description and a long description, ideally. You don't have to have both of those, but you should. Every product needs a price, and every product needs a product image. The other things, the gallery, the tags, and categories are optional, but you should use them, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So let's go ahead and set a product image. I'm going to go find this folder. This just opened up a folder on my computer. Here are the fancy wheels that I have. One of them is dented. That's why I've never used them. So I'm just uploading the image. This is, if you have taken another class from me, do not judge my image name, the file size, the pixel size, or any of that stuff. It is as bad as it could be. But I'm putting these on Craigslist, so I don't care about search engine optimization. If you are doing this on a WooCommerce site like we're doing, name the product image. This is just like optimizing any content, any image that you put onto your website anywhere, whether it's in a page, a featured image, doesn't matter. Name the image, name it without spaces. So you just butt the words up together or put dashes. Use keywords in the name of, and that, call the image what the image is, what the product is. Size it down to about 150 kilobytes or smaller, and size it down to about 1,000 pixels, 1,000 by 1,000 or smaller than that. There are some instances where you might want a larger pixel size and therefore also a larger kilobyte size. We typically do it with like real estate, where people want these massive high-res photos, but they also want it to load quickly. That's the trade-off. The bigger the image, the slower your site's going to be. But for instance, we have a website for a painter here in town. She's a really prominent, phenomenal painter, and she wants these super high-res images that people can kind of zoom in and see the quality and see the detail. And so she might put in like a 2,000 by 2,000 pixel image because there's a built-in little zoom functionality. Last little bit, and then we'll move on from images. Try to always put in alt text, and then if the image file name were better, then the title would also match that. And then captions typically show up down below images. And so captions of all of these alt tags, titles, captions, and descriptions, the caption is the only one that typically shows up to the users. The others are behind the scenes and kind of seen by only really Google. And so I'm going to set that as the product. There's my wheel. Next. And these next two things are tags and categories. And again, tags and categories aren't mandatory. You don't have to use them, but you should. Tags and categories are a really good way to group your products and put them in buckets so that people that might come to your site and find one set of wheels can then go find all the sets of wheels that you might have. Or let's say, so let's run the scenario real quick with these wheels. Let's say I'm going to put 3 different sets of wheels, but then I've got other products. Well, all the products that are wheels are probably going to go into the wheels category. And then, but maybe everything that is just related to Volkswagen or BMW, those aren't all in the same category if they're different parts. So for instance, if I've got a steering wheel and wheels and seats and other pieces, they might all need to be connected by one common thread, and that would be a tag. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to put in a couple quick tags. I'm going to put in BMW, Beamer, and wheel sets, for instance. And I just put in a comma, and I'm going to add those tags. And then this logic is the same with blog posts. And so if you've taken the WordPress blogging class, I dig a little bit deeper into tags and categories and why they're so important. And then the next one here is the category. And for this, I'm going to do wheels. And I'm going to add that category. You don't have to use a lot of categories, but just use at least one. Even if you make a category called products, do something, because if you don't, every product you put on your site is literally going to be put into a category called uncategorized, and that is not ideal. It's not going to hurt you that bad long term. It's just start this thing off on the right foot and get it headed down the right path, and then it'll be clearer and easier as you continue to grow the site. All right, and then next, then it's basically publish your product. So I'm gonna go ahead and click publish. And once you click publish, it turns into update. And so at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and jump back to the front of the website. I'm gonna go back to the home page. We're not gonna have anything on the home page. And in a second, we're gonna go and we're gonna deal with that. We're gonna actually build out a shop page. Or we're gonna make a home page the shop page. But if I go to shop, I should get my one product. Now this is bland. Again, this is very bland, but again, in my opinion, it's all about the settings, the setup, making sure that things are set well before you focus too much on what this looks like. Half of you are going to completely ignore that, and you're gonna get one or no products in place and instantly go play with your theme, and you'll either get frustrated or not, I don't know, but get at least a couple products in the site before you instantly get sidetracked with the theme. It's also important for you to see what your products look like inside of different themes. And if you don't have products, you can't see that. So here we got our BMW wheels. I can click on the picture. There's our price and our discounted price. Got a little quick add to cart button. If I click on it, it's going to take me to the specific product page. Up in the top, we can see here we are / product that tells us that this is a product and it's not a page or a post or anything like that. Question from Krista, do themes have shop pages? Yes, some themes have, especially if it's a theme that's built for or to cater towards WooCommerce, they will have like a theme, like a template file or a piece of the theme that is like generate a shop page. The shop page itself is created by WordPress, and then there's a little bit of connectivity that happens to say, hey, WooCommerce, put the products on this page. And so the page is actually a WordPress page, but the visuals and the look and feel of it is definitely controlled by the theme. And in a second, we'll go and we'll turn on the Storefront theme, and you'll see this, that last screen we were just on, this shop page, as well as the individual product page. All of these have their own kind of look and feel that can get styled. So I do want to point out that the title of the product becomes the permalink or the slug. Okay, so permalink is the permanent link to the file. It's also kind of referred to as the slug. That is the slug right there for this product. It's the name of the product with the spaces turned into a dash. Again, there's our full price, discounted price, short description right there. We've got to add to cart. We've got an automatic quantity option right there. You probably want 4 wheels. If the picture were of 4 wheels, make sure that you say this is a set of 4, or you can say just pick how many wheels you want. There's our category, and there are our tags. And the cool thing about this, and the reason why I even really address categories and tags, is that if somebody wants to see all the BMW stuff, they can click on that right there, and it'll go to what's called a tag page, and it's going to pull every product, regardless of the category that it's in, every product that's been tagged with BMW. Or if I click on wheels, it's going to go to the category page, and it's going to pull in all the different wheel sets that have been put in the wheel category. So categories and tags, I don't want to beat this too hard here, but it's a really important thing to try to think through your products and the future of your site and try to get this stuff set up to kind of create a clean roadmap for users to really be able to navigate your site. We'll jump towards the end. We'll jump to some of these other stores that I've got opened up, and I'll show you a little bit more specifically how some of them are using it and using it really well. Down here, we've got the long description. Long description goes here. And I'm not sure why that's an actual clickable thing. I guess maybe just, okay, because of that. So it creates, and again, this is based on the theme that we have active, the Storefront theme. It creates this reviews tab. So this is like a little mini tab section where it'll change that content. And if we had other details, let's say we had something like variations, those could show up down here. If we had like cross sells or upsells, which we'll talk about, those could show up down here. Just to talk briefly about reviews, there is a review system built right into WooCommerce. There's a lot of folks out there these days that opt to use something else, whether that's like a TripAdvisor system or a third-party review plugin that might link you over to like Google reviews or something like that. That's fine to do. The level of difficulty is very different for different sites. And depending on where you're trying to aggregate or pull reviews from, you can very quickly, just like with themes, get completely derailed and off topic and spend way too much time running down that path. Get your products in place, get your settings in place. I'm a big fan of like doing this assembly line process and like roll through and get 10 products in there, figure it out, roll back through and fine tune, roll back through and optimize, and don't get too hung up on getting stuff picture perfect. Websites are never done. And that's frustrating for all of us. All right, so we've got our basics here. We've got our product in place. I'm going to go ahead and let's just explore this. Let's keep digging through this process as if we were going to go through and buy it, and that'll let me kind of talk about some of these next screens and some of the other things that we now have to do to just make this a functioning store. So I'll click Add to Cart. We've got 4 BMW wheels have been added to the cart. This green color can obviously be changed, both with the Storefront theme overall, as well as like individual colors that show up throughout. And I'll go ahead and go to the next. So now we're on the cart page. There's our quantity. We've got our subtotal. Coupon codes are also something that are built right into WooCommerce. And so you can create any number of coupons. They can be unique. You can make one that you give out in a newsletter. You can make one that's just applicable to one person. You can say this can be used once or infinite times. It can be based on, a percentage discount, or it could apply a percentage discount or a total dollar value discount. Totally up to you. All right, and now I'm going to say proceed to checkout. There are also plugins that will help consolidate all these different steps. So, one of the big things with e-commerce and really just sites in general is try to get things as streamlined as possible, and the fewest clicks, the better. And to call out the big 800-pound gorilla, Amazon, you can accidentally buy stuff these days. You can literally, if you have an Echo or an Alexa, you can like accidentally order stuff. And other people walking into your house can order stuff for you if you've got it connected. And then also if you get onto Amazon, there's a button that's like just, it's not even add to cart or buy now. It's like the one-click buy button. They have perfected the buying process to an extreme. And it's tough to replicate that. A lot of us need more information from people than just buy it. We typically don't have a card on file with some random website, maybe we do, to just go in and buy stuff. So a lot of times we do need to collect a little bit more info, but I guess the main thing I'll encourage everybody to do is ask yourself, do I really need all these different options? Do I really need to get certain things from people? And if you don't, there's ways to streamline that process. So I'll go ahead and buy this thing. And And so I went through and I put in my details. I'll get my phone number in here. There's this additional information down below, this order notes, which is optional. We do use this a lot of times on a lot of sites where we kind of coach people to put order notes down in this field. You know, I buy a bunch of car and motorcycle parts, and a lot of those sites, they don't force you to put in anything, but they ask you when you're buying something, they say, please tell us the year, make, and model in the notes section. And so you can take advantage of that. Now, I want to jump over here to the right now and look at the fact that we've got our total, and then this big blue message right here. Sorry, it seems that there is no available payment methods for your state. Please contact us, Please contact us if you require assistance or wish to make alternative arrangements. So I'm going to leave this screen up here right now, and I'm going to jump back to this previous tab. And this is a good segue into the other things that you must have to have a functioning e-commerce website. You have to be able to take payment. So I'm going to go over here and go to WooCommerce, and I'm going to go to settings. Now here's the first settings screen. Kind of sit tight on that screen that we were just on about the payment issue. We're going to get to it in just a second, but here are the settings that we put in the beginning, where it's going to pre-populate like where the actual business is located. Feel free to kind of go through these different tabs up top. You'll want to eventually for probably all of them, even if you just look to see what's there. And it has things about like who you can sell to, who you can ship to, you know, tax rates, coupons, all different types of things. Do you take the dollar or the euro? What separator do you want to use for like $1,000 and that kind of stuff? And by default, they try to just pick the most common stuff. So I'm going to jump straight over to the payments and try to not get too distracted. So people can't buy anything unless there's some type of payment. And when I say some type of payment, the reason why I say it that way is because if you are building the site like I'm just doing, and you just want to like get all the mandatory steps done, you can come in here and just turn on COD. Cash on delivery. And that is adequate for WooCommerce to let somebody process through and go through the whole process of processing a payment. In this case, we're saying just pay us when it gets here, and a lot of us don't do that, and we want to take money through PayPal or Stripe. But if I choose one of these options, again, it's going to send us off on a detour, and we're going to have to go link in with PayPal and do all that kind of stuff. I am going to talk about payments in a little bit more depth at some point, but for now, I just want to turn this option on and save the changes. And now I'm going to jump back over to this. I'm going to refresh the page that I'm on. And now I can at least move on to the next step of this process, which is I'll pay you when it gets there, place the order. For some reason, I clicked refresh, so that's why I lost that. So there's some required fields, as you saw there, built into it. Yay, we just sold some wheels. So we processed our first purchase. We didn't really process any payment, but we know why. This is what the user would see. Order was processed. There's a weird thing that WordPress does, and I'll bring it up just because we're on the screen right now. The order numbers, as far as the different orders that are placed on the store, are totally random. They are not sequential. I don't know why they do that, or they don't do that. There is a plugin, an add-on. It is free, and it's called Sequential Order Numbers. And it's silly that they even have that, but at some point they will realize just make them sequential, and then you can just look at the order number and you're like, I've had this many total orders, and then the next one will be one higher. But that is something that I've had to dig into and I got confused about, but that's the case. So this is the first order, but it starts as order 12. The date, which is correct, email, total, payment method, that'll link us straight to back over to those products, the billing info, and there we go. And so I also, I should have just gotten, let me jump over and see if this happened here. I was gonna see if it actually triggered an email, and it did. So this, I just popped this open over on another screen. So this is the email that came in. This is the email that a user essentially would get. And so I mentioned early on when I was kind of reviewing or talking about the kind of the table of contents of the timeline for this, I mentioned that you can use WooCommerce to do a series of email triggering. So this is the first one that a user would get. And so I, as the user, info at Big Boom Design, got this email. It's it will link right there. It'll link me back over to the website if I want to log back in and or generate a password so that I can log back in. And then it's going to basically be for my records here. Okay. At this point, let me check my roadmap and cool. All right. So at this point, I'm going to jump back over to the admin side. I'm going to go back to products. I'm going to go back into this wheels, just do a quick little recap, product title, long description, got to have a price, short description, you should have, you don't have to, product image, you're not going to sell anything if you don't have a picture, tags, and categories. And then you can publish it. What I want to do is explore a little bit more, or at least just talk about some of these other tabs that are on this product screen. And then we're going to go play around a little bit with the design just for a bit. And so Sherry had a question, does the invoice always say a WordPress site? It does until you customize it. And actually, let me take that back. What you're referring to from that email was, that was plugged in from this right here. Once you name your website, which is done under settings, general, I'll open that in another tab and I'll show you. Once you change the site title from a WordPress site and the site tagline from just another WordPress site, once you set that to something, then that email template's going to automatically get updated. But there are a bunch of email templates that you can work with that get triggered based on different actions that happen. And we'll go look at that as well in just a second. Let me make a note to remind myself to look at the order screen. All right, so what I wanted to briefly do is just kind of talk about what these are and just click through them. We're not really going to change anything at this point. We'll circle back, but I want to make sure there's like 8 things that I have to hit in this for me to feel good about teaching this class. And then I'll run back through some of them and dig deeper in the ones that I think are kind of like the level 2 of what people need to hear. So inventory it's exactly that. You can put a SKU number in here. So, you know, just make up a SKU number. You can enable the stock management, so you can actually, you know, a lot of you might have either one of these items. Let's say you're an artist and you're doing artwork. Well, you've only got one, probably. If you're, you know, a painter and then you do prints, maybe you only do, you know, you have one original and then you only have 25 Jaclay prints or something like that. So the stock quantity can be turned on right there. Allow back order. So if and for instance, the oil pan site that I mentioned earlier, we're on back order right now. So we kind of turned it into a wait list system. And if we were using WooCommerce on that site, I would have just gone in here, turned this on. But again, that one's using just a basic form setup. And then the low stock threshold, I'm not sure exactly. Basically you as an admin will be notified that the quantity got down to a certain point at whatever point you set this as. All right, it is in stock, out of stock, or on back order. That's a great way if you don't want to just straight up delete a product. You can just mark it, you know, out of stock at the moment. And then sold individually, enable us to only allow one of these items to be bought in a single order. So let's say you do have multiple instances of it, but for whatever reason, whether it's based on shipping or payment or delivery time, any of those things, you might want to say like, no, you can buy multiple, but only one within one checkout. All right, shipping. Shipping is a deep, dark, slippery slope. The best way to deal with shipping is to not deal with shipping. If you can get away from that, do it. Obviously, if you're doing like affiliate stuff with Amazon, they're going to ship it for you. If you have a drop ship business like our oil pan thing is, somebody else is shipping it for us. And so we just basically tack on a fee and say it costs this much for the product and it's free shipping. And we just mark it at a certain price that we know that we're not going to get burned. Sometimes there's a learning curve there. But I know a lot of you are thinking, well, good for you, Boomer, but I have to charge shipping. And so I'm going to show you or talk a little bit about how to do that. So most shipping paths that people would take are to either do what's called a flat rate, which is it costs $5, $10, $50, whatever it is. And you can set up flat rates based on total purchase price, like the total shopping cart price. You can do flat rate shipping based on an individual product. And then the different route that people take is to do something like UPS, USPS, FedEx, one of those types of things. And there's add-ons to do those, and they're all about $80. They are not the easiest things to integrate, but sometimes that's needed, and so it is what it is. I can tell you that almost all of the kind of tier 2 shipping options, so if you're going to use UPS, FedEx, USPS, they're going to want to know how much does this thing weigh, what is the length, what is the width, and what is the height. FedEx and UPS handle these things very differently. And I forget which one, but one of them does it based on like the box size, and they don't really care about the weight. And the other one cares a lot about the weight and less about the box size. So depending on the route that you're going to take, you're going to want to make sure that you're following the guidelines that that company is put out there. And then shipping classes get a little bit more complex, but you can create groups of items that fall in under a class, and you can kind of address shipping across the board for a number of products that are common, and you can do that by creating shipping classes. All right, linked products, upsells and cross-sells. You guys have all seen this before. You've seen it on Amazon. People that bought this book also bought this book. And so that would be a cross-sell. You're selling kind of laterally across, whereas an upsell is kind of an add-on or an upgrade to a particular product. Question from Sherry, can you do flat rate based on zip codes? You can, yep. And the example that I'm going to use for that in a little bit is Shanti Elixirs. They have a very robust, very in-depth shipping system, and they've got it based on, certain products need certain shipping because some of their products have actual living stuff in the June. And then they've got it based on, are you super duper local? Within our zip code, next to the shop local? Are you within one of these 6 or 7 zip codes? Are you within the state? Are you within the Southeast? Or are you in the country? And all of those different breakpoints or different thresholds of proximity have different shipping options available for them. Some of their products cannot be shipped across the country, whereas others can be. So. Also, the linked products and the cross-sells, the products have to exist in the system before they will show up here. So it says, please type in 3 or more characters. I might be able to type in BMW, but we're on the product. I didn't think that was going to work because we are on the product that we're trying to cross-sell or upsell for. So this isn't going to populate with anything until you have a number of products in the system. Attributes are the next thing on here, and we are going to talk about attributes if we have time because it's probably one of the most used tier 2 or level 2 thing that people might want to do. And this is where you'll create, color, shape, size, or some variation on a product. And we'll look at that in a little bit. Advanced is just purchase notes. These are internal notes for you, hey, when this sells, make sure you go and do something. Menu order, you can actually position. I think this is for the admin, custom order position. You might be able to move either these around or move this around. Normally the admin menu order has to do with the placement in the menu for the admin user. So maybe that's what it is. And then enable reviews. We saw that before when we looked at the front of the site. And then get more options down here. This kind of is a gateway to all of the different add-ons that exist either from Automatic or from other people. I've kind of hinted at the fact that there's plugins that will help streamline the checkout process. This one-page checkout is one that I've actually used, and it does a pretty good job. it just combines all the screens, and it's like, don't force people to click through 4 screens, just put as much on one screen as you can. Minimum and maximum quantities on particular orders, other image variations, kind of an auction type of situation for donations or for auctions and tips and things like that. All right, so that's all of them on there. I'm going to go ahead and I'll just click update because I'm sure we did make a couple changes there. And so the next thing that I'm going to do is this option up at the top, design your store. I wanted to touch on this before everybody gets totally bored with settings and setup and stuff like that, and at least talk some about the design of it. I would love at some point to kind of combine these 2 new classes that I'm doing, the Divi class and the WooCommerce class, and do a Divi WooCommerce class together. If anybody wants that, you probably need to reach out to Dwayne or somebody, and there might only be like a couple people that would want that, and I think they have to have a certain amount of people say, hey, I'd like to do that before they'll even entertain it. I think that number is 4 people have to say that they want it. But anyway, I am going to go look at the storefront theme. And so this option up here, we're going to design the store. We're going to create a home page using Storefront's homepage template. So let's go. This is going to kick us over to what's called the customizer. I'm going to grab some water while that's happening. All right, so if you've dealt with WordPress before, you've probably seen the customizer, maybe not looking like this, but something like this. I'm going to skip this tour because that was a tour not specific to WooCommerce or the storefront theme, but it was specific to just the customizer in general. So in that case, it's not specific at all. And I'm going to draw your attention down to this WooCommerce tab down here. The cool thing about the customizer, though, I will say, is that you can navigate inside of the screen. So we can actually interact with this. So I could click on this, or I could click over here on Shop, and it's going to take me to that particular screen. I can go back to the home. So this is our new home page based on the shop theme that we have added. The shop homepage. I keep calling it shop, sorry. The storefront, which is the name of the theme. The homepage now looks like this. We've got this intro thing where we could switch out that background photo. We've got some dummy text up top. We've got 2 sections that kind of tap into WooCommerce here. We've got shop by category, which there's our 2 categories, uncategorized and wheels. It's the same product that show up in both. And then down below, so this top section is categories. Down below, we have an individual product section, and in this case it's the stuff that's new. I don't know what that time frame is or how many show in before others get pushed out. Looks like maybe 3 here as far as how much space there is. Fan favorites, again, no idea. There's nobody's, maybe it's because we purchased it, so somebody bought it. On sale, yep, we did mark it on sale. Best sellers, there's only 1. And so you can see here that it's trying to give you quite an array of options here, and you can go through and you can get rid of any of these or all of these that you might want to. I'm going to go ahead and go well, let's hold off and let me run through this left-hand column here. So store notice is a quick way to just pull your site offline, or at least the store portion of the site. So you can enable the store notice, and it's basically going to kill, I'm not sure exactly where it does that, but it kills the shopping cart connectivity right down here. It's showing that. And then you can customize that message. Nothing too fancy there. Product catalog. So this is going to let you decide what shows on certain sections of the site. So for instance, on the shop page, choose what to display. Do we want to show products? Probably. But you might want to show categories. Or you could show both. So there we've got the categories showing up as well as the one product that we've got there. And so I'll jump over to this Acme site for just a quick second to show you this. So the shop page on this one, and I'm logged in, so ignore the spacing and the goofiness here. These are now, we're on the top level shop page, and so this is a category. And so if I click on this, it goes into all of the products in there compared to here, compared to here. So if I click on, fleece seat covers, this is the category image, and now I'm going to have the category description and then individual products inside of it. So what we're deciding over here is that top level shows what? Products, categories, or both. And then we've got the same thing down here when we get to the category level. You would kind of expect to see products in the category that you're looking at. What's the sorting order? And so in this case, it's the custom ordering plus the name. And I think that's actually where that thing that we looked at on the last screen on the individual product, that's the ordering aspect they were talking about. You can do it based on popularity, rating, sort by price, high, low. Totally up to you, whatever you want to do there. Product should show in how many rows. This will let you kind of customize. You know, we only have this one product, but if we were to clone this out a number of times, we would see that we now have 4 across rather than 3 across. And there's probably some point where they don't let you do more of this, but from what I can tell, you can just make these as small as you might want. All right, so that's on the product category settings. On the product page specifically, so we are on, let's go to a specific product page. This is going to be the simple add to cart option there. The pagination, which is going to let you have multiple products. We only have at this point this one product, so we can't jump to more or less products here. We do now. I'm seeing we've got this. There's an example of where an additional tab shows up because we put in the weight and the dimensions. We now have that 3rd tab in place. Sorry to jump around when I'm doing this. I'm just kind of visually seeing some of these things that have changed, and I want to acknowledge it and connect the dots if anybody's like, well, wait, that new thing showed up. The image cropping and the thumbnail. So if you remember, this image is like a long, tall image. I didn't crop it down yet. And so we could come in here and we could set specific ratios and say, hey, we want it to be square. Or we can uncrop, which is going to give the whole image. If you wanted to set uncrop, that's fine. Just make sure that you do a proper job of cropping down images so that you're not, loading these goofy images in different sizes. Continuity throughout the website is a really important thing, and settings like this 1-to-1, which essentially is just square, that will kind of keep things throughout the site all looking similar. And then the checkout here, we've got a bunch of different options, and notice it jumps us to the checkout screen. Again, trim out anything that you don't have to collect. Company name, it probably doesn't really matter to you. I mean, maybe you're selling a product specifically to companies, and then it might. Address line 2, I guess that's probably needed, but you don't want it to make it required. Phone number, probably required. You might want that. We've got this little option to turn on or turn off the asterisk, the little required thing. Don't turn this off if you have any required fields, and there's always some required fields, so try to leave that one on. It's got a link to a privacy policy page as well as the terms and conditions. Both of those are pretty important. That's going to be listed. Where does it actually put that? Oh, right there. So the privacy policy is linked in right there. We don't have anything for this, but if we turned that on, it would give us the terms and conditions. So that's kind of a built-in mechanism. That's a new thing with WooCommerce in the past couple years, I think. To address both of these, you should have a privacy policy, even if you don't have a store. Google these days is looking at privacy policy pages, and it's actually a factor. I have heard it's a factor in ranking. And so Google's trying to make the entire internet, HTTPS secure, and then also, just basically trying to make sure people are aware of the fact that, you need to be looking into these different aspects. And so it'll create a default privacy policy to kind of get you started, and then you can go in and customize it and add to it from there. And then terms of service is great if you just need people to confirm that they have, they've read it, whether they did or not. If they check that box, it's gonna mark it in the actual order that was checked. And so if there's any legal ramifications, I am no lawyer and I don't know how well that will hold up, but it's better than not having it at all. So, and then you can customize both the message that shows here and the message that shows for the terms. These little square bracket statements here, these are called short codes. That's going to automatically make that a link, likewise down here to terms. And then the last thing I'll show you in this is, I'll jump back and I'll go back to a product page. And this is just something that's kind of a crossover from, or a bleed over from like just basic WordPress editing stuff, is that you can come down here and you can click the different screen sizes. And so we can look to see what the site looks like on all these different devices. And by all of these, tablet, desktop, and phone. And it's a way to just make sure that you're continuing to build your site in a responsive manner. Responsive means that the site responds to the content and to the device. All right, so I'm going to publish that. Let me check my little punch list over here. Okay, we did all that stuff that I wanted to cover there. The next thing that I want to do is, let's jump out of the customizer. And I want to go look at some alternative designs. So as you can see, this is still really, really boring, right? I mean, yeah, we got a t-shirt, hoodie, picture, but this is lame. We got all these different things that show up here. We could go in and I could edit this page and I could start to play around and move some things around. I just want to just briefly kind of talk about what's here. So this is, all of these are different blocks. So this is using the built-in Gutenberg block editor. I don't have time to dig into at all really into Gutenberg or the block editor. I will point out the fact that as I click through, the block at the top right is going to tell me what type of block that is. WooCommerce, when it's added, creates a bunch of its own WooCommerce specific blocks. Divi is the same. If you activate Divi, and I'm sure a lot of other themes do this as well, but Divi, I can tell you from experience, adds a bunch of different Divi modules that are the featured product or product sliders or things like that. So if you understand the Divi world and you're getting into WooCommerce, there's a bunch of Divi modules that will make your site that much cooler. And there are also Divi layouts that cater towards e-commerce as well. So I want to just point this out and then also show that you've got some of these same customizations over here, and these are going to get updated based on the type of block that you have selected. And this is also where you would go in and remove certain blocks by doing that. All right, I'm going to update that and get back on track with the alternate designs. So I'm going to go ahead and click on check them out. And so this is going to take me over to the WooCommerce theme browser section, for lack of a better term. And this is where I can change the theme that's applied to it. And these are all themes that are built by Automatic, or at least submitted and vetted by Automatic. And it can give you kind of a quick level up from a design standpoint. This is if you're not going to go the route of something like Divi or another theme. And so it's basically this storefront theme with a couple slight little variations. So I'm going to click on this. Let's do this deli theme. So I click on deli and I could do a live demo, or I could add it to the cart. This is probably going to, it's now running me through a cart, even though this is free. It's going to want me to download this. If you can download WooCommerce and get it set up without an account. As soon as you enter into any of the add-ons or the themes like we're doing, you have to have an account, and it's going to walk you through a checkout process, even if you don't have to pay for it. So this is $0, but it's still going to want me to go log in, download, and like I purchase it. If I wasn't already logged in, it would ask me to do that or to create an account at this time. I purchased it, and obviously WooCommerce is using their own WooCommerce to handle this process. So this is it's kind of a little interesting insight into how they're handling this very simple process, which is digital download. Go ahead and download the file. It created an order. There's our order number. There's our date. So we're now seeing it kind of from the other side's perspective of a user getting something from WooCommerce. So I'll jump back over here. And let's see what I need to. Now that I'm back on the site, I have downloaded that add-on theme. I can go over here to themes. I can add a new theme. I can upload a theme. And I'm going to upload that deli theme, and I'll install it. And I can go ahead and activate it. And now when I go view the front of the website, I've got a new fancy theme in place. It's not very fancy, but it's free. And it basically just wrapped, our homepage. Again, we've got all the same blocks. Everything's laid out, same exact way. Let's go look at these different pages along the way. So let's look at the shop page. So all the settings are going to stay the same. So if we had said, you know, for the top level shop page, show categories, then it would be showing categories right here. But we didn't. We've got it set to products. And then if we click on this, it's going to take us to the individual product page. We've got our little hover state there. There's that huge dent that you can see. You guys probably can't see that. We've got our tags and our categories, our description, our info. And so it's basically just rewrapped the content all over the place. Oh, that's pretty cool. I just noticed that. So on hover, or sorry, on scroll, once you get down past the image, it gives you a little thumbnail. That's pretty cool. I like that. And then a quick little add to cart. I remember seeing that in the customizer. I wasn't exactly sure what that was all about, but that's neat. And then if we add to cart, and we've got it in the cart, it showed up over here. Let's say view cart. It also gives us up in the menu bar. This is a nice little kind of hover state where it's going to show our products listed out. That's a very Amazon-like thing that they've done. And then view cart or checkout. Let's go view cart. Same thing. We can bump up quantities, update, and we'll process. And again, it's kind of looping us back through this process that we already dealt with. So I think that's as much as I want to cover on the design side of stuff. We got about 30 minutes left. There's probably going to be questions at some point, but I do want to hit on a couple slightly more advanced things. And so for that, what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and jump back to the admin side. Let's go back to WooCommerce and orders. And I want to talk a little bit about the different statuses statuses for the different orders. I go into this order. It's got all the order details. And it's got the details that I plugged in when I actually purchased it. We've got the item that was added. We can go in here and issue a refund right there. This is going to trigger something to go to whatever payment system we are using. We are using cash on delivery for this one, so it's not going to do anything. But if we use Stripe or PayPal, it would trigger a notice, and then it would say, hey, refund that amount. And so all of the payment handling happens from within, it can happen from within inside of the order. You can also go to your payment gateway. They're called a virtual merchant. You can go log into Stripe or go log into PayPal, and you can issue refunds there. I would encourage you to do stuff from inside of WooCommerce because it keeps breadcrumbs throughout the way, breadcrumbs through the woods in a sense. Down here, we've got custom fields. Don't worry about this. I can just go ahead and minimize this thing down here. We do have this download product option because we turned on that as a potential thing. And then over here at the top right, we've got an order actions. And so we can email an invoice. It already did that, and we saw that that kind of order confirmation came through. But we could trigger it another one. I'm sorry, it was the new order notification that went over. And then we could regenerate download permissions. Now, sometimes you've got a whole lot of different options that show up here, and that's based on a lot of times the type of product. So the Ride the Farm website that does bookings, it's also with like the Regal Ride website that I mentioned, there's more options in there because that product has extra settings that might need to happen. And so that list might be different based on the type of product that you're using. And also another thing I'll point out that might not be super significant to a lot of you, but it's got the customer IP address. That's actually a really cool thing. And so, you know, one of the interesting things, once you have a site up and running and you've got orders, you can export all this data. There's a website out there called BatchGeo that I'll go ahead and mention. That's pretty cool, and I use it every once in a while for clients. You can come over here and you can just paste in a list of addresses, or in this case, a list of IP addresses. And it'll create a big old map, and it'll show you where all of your orders happened from. Our oil pan business that I mentioned before, I did that years into the business, and it was like this huge aha moment where I realized that like 80% of all of the orders that we had received were from like right around all the Great Lakes. And it's because all of the salt that's used on the roads, and it rusts out the oil pans faster. And so I realized like all of our marketing dollars needed to be focused on like the 5 to 6 states and up into Canada, like right there. And I didn't really realize that until I batch geoed all the sales that we had. So I bring that up. That's a little bit of like a next level up type of thing, but it's worth mentioning, I think. Okay. The other thing that I want to do before I move on from this is to talk about the order status. And this is how you can trigger different things, different emails to happen. So pending payment is if the payment didn't go through and it's still pending. Processing means the payment went through, and we can see that over here. Payment to be made upon delivery, order status changed from pending payment to processing. And so it's got a little note over here, and these are notes that we as admins can see. And so we are at processing, right? Yeah, we're at processing now. We can say on hold for whatever reason. We can say that it's been completed. We can cancel it. We can say it's refunded or that it's failed. And so based on these different statuses of the order, it's going to trigger a particular email. So if I say, you know what, it is on hold for some reason, and I update, we're now going to get order status change from processing to on hold. So it's a really great way, especially if you have a team of people that are working with you, or a staff that needs to go in and just see what the hell's going on with a particular order. If you're diligent about updating these statuses, it's a real quick and easy way to just say, go look at the order notes. Whatever's at the top is the most recent thing. You can also go, we'll explore real quick this list of WooCommerce options here. You can go to customers. Here's me. Here's the order that was placed, email address, when it was placed, when they were active last, where they're located. You can download that list. This has gotten so much better in the past, really couple months, it feels like. And then you can turn on or turn off certain fields right there. Coupons, this is a place that you can manage. You can go in and manage your coupons. If I can get this page to load. I don't want to dig too deep into this for the sake of time, but you can create a coupon and say it's 10% off if they use this coupon code. And you can use that coupon code, in a mailer, in a newsletter, social media, whatever you might want. You can also create specific coupon codes for certain people. So if somebody is a family member or a friend or something, you can just shoot them a coupon code that's like always free or 50% off. It's totally up to you to manage those. And then as you can see down here, there's a lot of add-ons that will kind of take the coupon concept to the next level. So personalized coupons, smart coupons, store credit is kind of a cool thing that you can use. And then there's also systems that will tie into your point of sale. So if you do have a physical brick and mortar store and your point of sale system creates coupons, there might be a WooCommerce add-on to allow this to happen. We're working with the New Morning Gallery down in Biltmore Village, and they have a similar system like this where people can have in-store credit that can be used online or physically in the store, and it should pull from the same balance. All right, so let's go back up over to here and go to reports. The reports that are built right into WooCommerce are not great. They're getting better. There's a lot to tackle within these, but it does give you very quick, kind of simple, just a simple snapshot. And you can change the date range. You can look at sales by product, by category, coupons. We can also kind of on this report screen see customers, customer activity, and then stock. We can get quantity, things like that, if we're actually using the stock management piece of that. All right, so jumping down into settings. I'm trying to move through a bunch of these things and not make it like too frantic. So sorry if it seems like we're picking up the pace a little bit. We looked at this screen. This is where you can kind of the top level of the settings with WooCommerce. Under products, this next tab, I do definitely want to call out the fact that this is like a nested settings. This entire thing is there's levels here. We're in settings, and now we're going across these tabs. But there is also these little blue links down below. So these little blue links are specific now to products. I go back to general. We don't have anything there. But as we move through these other tabs, there are sub-setting pages, if you wanted to call them that. So on the products tab, we've got what is the shop page? I think Krista asked earlier, like, is the shop page part of WooCommerce, the theme, the template? What is it? Well, you make a page, And if you go through the setup process that WooCommerce walks you through, it'll create the page. But let's say that you have some other page, or you don't want it to be called shop. This is where you can come in and you can just say, this page that exists in the pages section in WooCommerce, or in WordPress, should be where all of the shopping stuff goes. Similar to how you can tell WordPress what your blog post page is. If that went over your head, don't worry about it. We're not doing blogging right now. This is an option we use quite a bit, redirect to the cart page after a successful addition. A lot of us, we might only have 1 or 2 products. They might be even like competing products. It's like, you're going to buy this one, or you're going to buy this one, or you're going to buy that one. If that's the case, and they're not going to try to stack up a big cart, just bypass the cart page and just push them straight to, bypass the checkout page and just bypass them all the way to the very end of the process. Let me rephrase that. When you add a product into the cart, you have to click the button that takes you to the cart. By doing this, it's going to automatically, when you say add to my cart, it's going to do that, and then it's going to automatically take you there. That's the more correct way to say that. Let's not talk about Ajax at the moment. Placeholder image was just that little shopping cart bag, and you can go in and you can set a specific location or an ID for the product image there. You probably noticed when we were looking at like weight and sizes, it was pulling in kilograms and centimeters. Let's change that to pounds and inches. We can turn on or off reviews. There's a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and just save the changes. Inventory, this is where you can do your inventory management, and you can set these different thresholds, who's notified when something hits that low threshold. We saw this on a per product basis, but this is where you would set the entire site to do a certain thing. That's also something that you might typically need. If something goes out of stock, don't show it to anybody. And this is a way for you to not have to constantly change the status of a product, say out of stock. It's just going to hide it from the site. And then downloadable products, we're not going through this one, but you can choose how to do certain things based on, once they successfully check out, where does it go? Does it go straight to the download? Does it just happen? Does it go off site? The download part of this can get a little deep, and I don't really want to dig into it right now for the sake of time. If you're trying to do digital downloads and you've got follow-up questions, let me know about that. All right, shipping. We got to talk about shipping because it's such a pain. Again, they try to keep this logical. Shipping is probably the most complicated thing that people run into as they're setting up a store. It's definitely the thing that we get pulled into the mix on the most. I've got a guy on staff, Greg. He's been with me for a number of years. He is like the WooCommerce shipping ninja. I constantly get confronted with situations where I have no idea how to set up the shipping system based on what the client is looking for, and I'll go to Greg and he's like, yeah, I remember how to do this. But it takes a while to kind of wrap your head around this stuff. They do try to give you pretty clear examples, like a local zone. California zip code is local pickup. You can do all the states at flat rate. So let's go ahead and just do one of them. So I'm going to add a shipping zone. I'm going to call this one, local zip. And this is just a name for us. This is not going to show up to anybody. It's just the local zip code, and we'll do that at 28806 just so I know what's going on here. And then this next thing is, where does this apply? What area does this rule apply to? Well, it's 28806. And I can put that in there, or I'm sorry, if you do a zip code, you do have to click zip code there. And you would put that in there. If you're going to do it based on state, you do state in the top box, and you can list out multiple states in this case. You can also do what are called wildcard zip codes, and they kind of explain that. And there's really good documentation to dig kind of deeper into that. So we're basically saying, let's do local zip, by state. And we've got North Carolina and Virginia in here. And now once we've got our our zone created, we have to create it. We have to put a shipping method into the zone. In other words, we're making a rule right now to say if somebody buys something and they are in North Carolina or Virginia, then these following shipping methods are available. And so if I say, add a shipping method into this zone, here's where I get to choose flat rate, free, or pickup. So if I say flat rate, it's going to add a flat rate option that will show up to people if they are physically located in one of these two states. And then what I have to do is come in here and edit the flat rate and say how much the rate is. So this is done in dollars, so it's a $5, and you can see this gets complex. So you can do it based on the quantity of the items that are in there. We're going to keep this super easy. If somebody's in one of these two states, it's $5 to ship it to them. And you can add as many of these as you might want to. And you can go in and you can customize based on these different things. So a very common thing is to say free shipping when the minimum order amount equals $100. The other really important thing that I'll mention, and this, it might seem like I'm digging a little too deep into this, but this is, again, this is where most people get hung up. The shipping system is a hierarchy. And so right now I have two options. I have flat rate of $5 and I have free shipping. Well, based on how this is set up right now, if I were to go try to buy a product that were under $100, it would charge me $5 because that's what we set the flat rate shipping to and that threshold. If I were to try to go buy a product that were $101 or higher, or $100 or higher, it's going to offer free shipping, but because free shipping is the second thing offered, it's going to first offer the person, ask the person if they want to pay $5, and right below it, it's going to say, or you can get free shipping. Of course they want free shipping, so drag it to the top. And that's what I meant by it's a hierarchy. So as you build out these shipping sections, the best option for them should be at the top, and then go to the next one. So free shipping, flat rate, and then maybe the third option down might be something like UPS or FedEx. And the same is true once you dig into one of those paths where if you say, I'm going to use UPS, there's no free shipping, there's no flat rate, it's UPS for everything. Well, you then still have to do the same kind of hierarchy where you say, is it ground? Is it 2-day ground? Is it air? Is it 2-day air? Is it specially packaged in shrink wrap or with dry ice? And some of these plugins, they literally do have like all of those options, and you then have to kind of manually think about or go test test an order to see what the cost of these different things are, and then drag and drop them to get the cheapest to the best. That's just a usability thing. If you don't do that, you might get people that get all the way to your checkout and they're like, I'm not paying $87 for this crazy, shipping rate. Well, it's because you didn't drag the cheaper ones to the top. With that, I'll move on. I'll save this in the system. I do, in this case, want to talk about these next two blue options here. And so shipping options, this is where you can go in and there's, again, specifics related to this. This debug mode is something that I use constantly, and it's a really helpful thing. And it'll just turn on like why or no, if like no shipping rates are showing up and you turn debug mode on, it'll try to help guide you in the right direction. We're going to skip over shipping classes for now. Again, that's a way to kind of group a number of products into a certain shipping class. We still got 10 people, and I'm shocked that 10 people have hung. So thank y'all for hanging in. This is not one of the easiest things to get through for you guys. This is a blast for me. The payment options, again, there's a lot of different options to do this. This is where you would loop in typically either PayPal or Stripe. The third one is going to be something like authorize.net. All three of those are called virtual merchants. And when you go and add one of them into the mix, it's going to show up in this list, and then you're going to have settings that you need to set. So, for instance, I'll turn on PayPal. That's probably one of the standard ones that is that people would use. And then over here, I'm going to say I want to set up PayPal. This is one of the few free payment options that you can use that's built right into it. And so it is enabled because I just checked that button on the last screen. We're just going to call it PayPal, and so that is visible to the users on the front. Sherry, Square is, so yes, Stripe is a lot like Square. Square has like a physical Square reader, so a lot of brick and mortar businesses use Square and they've got that, but you can tap into the same exact system through their virtual merchant WooCommerce add-on, and it'll do the same thing. And so I think like Square, Stripe, and PayPal, they all take 2.9%. Some of you might know that's wrong with Square. I do know that PayPal and Stripe are both 2.9% of the total amount plus 30 cents per transaction. If you go through your bank, a lot of your banks will say, hey, you should process online payments with us. And I'm sure that they have built out something to do that, and that's probably at a cheaper rate. The trade-off is that there's probably not an easy add-on to just loop into WooCommerce. This happens to us often where clients like, hey, I want you to do an eCommerce, WooCommerce WordPress website, and I've already gotten my payment virtual merchant set up through my bank from some other state. And I want to use them because they offered me a 1.9% rate on charging cards. And I unfortunately have to say to them, that's great for the rate. I have to charge you for 10 hours of extra development to figure out how to follow their 100-page documentation of how to link up your site with their system. And so you don't want to go the route of your bank for that reason alone. Probably eventually some of these banks will get on board and they'll make a simple little add-on that makes it as easy as PayPal and Stripe. Personally, I use Stripe on all the different businesses that I'm involved in because Stripe will automatically give you your money after 2 days. PayPal forces you to request that they give you your own money. Anyway, I'll get back on track with this. Enable PayPal Sandbox. A sandbox is a place for you to play. So as you're kind of testing it out to try to figure out if it's working right, you can turn this on and it will stop trying to ping the servers over at PayPal. And then down here, this is where you're going to need to go, and and you can follow their little directions here. Log into PayPal, profile settings, my selling tools, website preferences, and then you copy your identity token and then you paste it in here. And so it needs some way to validate that this email address is tied to the proper account and that account can receive payments virtually via a website. It's called an API. You can do overrides. The other thing that some of you might want to do is you can set it to either authorize it or capture it. I would say, you want to go ahead and capture it. You want to authorize it and capture it. And the difference here is that this is just going to make sure that it's a legitimate card, but it's not going to charge it. Whereas capture is going to check that and go ahead and charge the card. Most of you probably want to check that it's valid, charge the card at that time. And then again, you might need to, depending on the method that you're using for, like for instance, refunds, you might need to get a PayPal API credential, and there's a link that's going to take you straight over to the developer system over at PayPal. I mentioned that that the shipping is the most complicated thing. PayPal's kind of like this, or not PayPal, but payments are probably the second most complicated aspect with setting all this stuff up. I'm going to go ahead and leave because I don't even know what I changed, but it's fine. This next screen, accounts and privacy, is how users are managed or handled when they kind of walk through the process. So, allow customers to place an order without an account. When we purchased those wheels and we did that little test order, it didn't force me to create an account around it. It just basically processed me as like a guest user in a sense. This option will let them log in if they are going to have a recurring thing where they're coming back and logging in and buying stuff from you. And we don't need to go through all these. They do a pretty good job again of kind of explaining all of these things out through this process. Let's see if there is anything else. Data retention is an important thing. I wish I had more time to talk about it. I don't have either the knowledge or the time to dig super deep into it, but these days we all need to be aware of, the data that we collect on people and be as transparent as possible about what we're collecting, why we're collecting it, what we're doing with it, both just to be a good quality citizen and business person, but also legally these days, based on some of the things that have happened, you need to follow guidelines, or else you can really get burned by that. Emails, this is where you can control the different email templates. And this is definitely something that I wanted to touch on, because you can do a really cool thing to kind of customize the emails that get sent out to your customers at various times. So there, when you guys looked at the new order email that came through, who it went to, when an order is canceled and it's going there, when an order fails, on hold, processing, completed, refunded. So remember, we looked at the order status. So if you change something to, completed, it's going to send out that email. And if I come over here and I look at what the details are for that email that gets sent out, we can go in and we can customize some stuff. You don't get a whole lot of customization. Like a lot of you were probably expecting to see something like MailChimp or Constant Contact, where you can like drag and drop colors and images and stuff like that. You can't do that right out of the box with WooCommerce. There is an add-on that you have to pay for. I want to call it just like WooCommerce emails or advanced emails or something like that. And that does give you the ability to really customize what these things look like and how they feel. And so again, this is where you could kind of think about this as like a drip campaign concept, where as people, if they buy something, let's say that you wanted to in the future send them a follow-up order, a week after you've changed the status to shipped. You could create a new email template in here, build out that logic. That's probably something that you would want to go to the that advanced plugin that I was talking about to have that done. And then it's from a generic standpoint, I showed you the email before and I just pulled it over. You can pull in a header here. You just paste in the address of that file and what shows up at the bottom, and then the basic colors. So if you do nothing else, if you don't go get that fancy email template plugin, you should at least set your base colors to match your own branding. All right, integrations. This kind of takes it to this next level, and in this case, they're just talking specifically about the this MaxMind geolocation, and it will let you do lookups on countries and things like that based on things like IP address, and so you can kind of sidestep some of the manual stuff that you're forcing people to do by using some of these add-ons. All right, advanced. Again, we've got a whole bunch of options up here that we don't really have time nor need to dig too deep into. As you can see, hopefully from this, WordPress, WooCommerce works fairly well right out of the box without having to dig too deep. If you start making sales and you're really like, this thing is working, like this is a serious source of income, or at least I want to try to make it a serious source of income, you can start peeling the layers back on the onion and you can dig real deep, way deeper than I can even walk you through, even in a day's class. And a lot of that ties in with REST API, webhooks, APIs, all these other add-ons that we can't even really go look at. I will talk about this. This is the page that lets you say, as somebody goes through the checkout process, what is the cart page? And it did this automatically because we went through the quick little tutorial. But again, just like we earlier could set the shop page, we can set the cart, the checkout, the my account, and the terms and conditions page, which I set that on a previous step. I would encourage you to not mess with your checkout endpoints ever. You can break stuff and you can forget what was there. Same thing down here with the account endpoints. An endpoint is basically, it's kind of like that. It's kind of an internal WordPress logic of what's the page that it needs to get to handle a certain step that you're asking your users to do. All right, I am going to pause for just a second and take a look at my list here. The one thing that I do want to do, and I got 7 minutes, and I'm going to do my best to get this nailed down in an efficient way, are attributes. I mentioned this earlier, and even if we run right up to 5 o'clock, I can wait a couple minutes after if there's questions. If there are questions that you want to drop, go ahead and drop them in the next couple minutes while I'm doing this, and I'll try to address them. But so this topic is attributes, which attributes and variations are the concept here. And I'm just going to use something simple, and I'm going to do this as color. So you can go under products and go into attributes, and we're going to create our first attribute set. And I'm going to say add this attribute. And at the attribute level, where we are, it is the big bucket. It is the color, the shape, the size, the location, the big thing. And then if I go inside of color, I can now add my colors. And I'm picking something that isn't going to require us to change the price per attribute. That is a thing. Like if I had to pick size and you want, small, medium, large are all the same price, and then extra large, XXL, XXXL, increase the price by some amount, you can do that, but it just, based on the sake of time, we don't necessarily need to. So I'm now going to go back over to our products. I'm going to go back into our wheel set. And now if I come down here and I change this to a variable product, I get this other option that gets added. And so now I'm going to go down to attributes, and I have one attribute. So if I had size, shape, color, all of those, they would all show up here. So I'm going to say I want to add the attribute of color. We need to do two more things to get this to actually work. I need to say select all, put all the colors in there. And sometimes you might not want all of them, so you could remove just one. You might have a product that doesn't come in all colors. It's only black and white, or it's black, white, and gray. And so you could put all colors in one of those sets, but then only use the certain values if you want. And then we need to click, they are used for the variations. And variations are what we're getting ready to look at in just a second. And this is how we actually attach these different values to the product. So I'll click Save the Attribute. And now, let me refresh that. All right. And now when I go down to the variation section here, I can create variations from all the attributes. And I click Go. Hopefully this works the way that I want it to. It added 3 variations. And there we have our 3 different color options that can be used. At this point, I'm going to click Update. I'm going to view this product. And I have nothing that shows up here. In fact, the product is broken, okay? And the reason why, and I wanted to at least point this out, is that if I go back to variation, what I have to do is I have to set a price. I have to set a price for my variation. I'm going to set that. I'm going to minimize it. I'm going to go, I'm going to click on this. I'm going to go down to this one, and I'm going to set basically a different price for each one of these. And I think if I did this correctly, I should now get a price range, 1200 to 13. Blue is 1200, green's 1300, and red is 1250. And that's how you can, create options for users to pick a color. And you don't have to change the price. You can. I wanted to at least talk about that, and then I'll jump back in for this last couple minutes and just show all the different things. So, we've created 3 variations of one product. So presumably it's the single product, different colors in this case. The price does change, but it doesn't have to. And, you could make one product downloadable and not for the others. You can manage stock for one of them if you have only limited colors for the product or not. You can change the image right here for the red version, the blue version, or the green version. Again, you've got all of these different settings that we've looked at in other sections, but now when you do it on the variation level, you can pinpoint that specific option from the drop-down menu and what might change or what might not change based on them choosing that one. The other thing that you can do is choose the default. And so if you want it to default to blue, for instance, that's how you would set that one. This can also get a little complex, obviously, especially if you start mixing in a lot of different variation groups all together. So we've got just a couple more minutes. I want to just quickly, I'm going to show a couple things here. One is I jumped over to the Chanti Elixir site. I just want to leave it on the screen for a second to let you see the complexity, the potential complexity of how shipping can get. They have all these different levels. Again, it's in a hierarchy. So if somebody's in 28787, they need to be able to have all of these different options. But as soon as they get into one of these other zip codes, it removes one of those options. I'm not sure which one it is. And then so on. It's local, not including those. It trims out other stuff. FedEx ground, FedEx for one specific product, FedEx 2-day state, but only goes to those different states. So that's one thing there. On the, it kicked me out of this one. Let's see if this is still fine. So if I go in, here's a site where we have, this is using the booking system. Let's see if I can quickly log in and get back to that. We're right at 5 o'clock, so if you need to drop, no worries. I'll wrap this up in the next 60, 90 seconds. This is a product where we've got, we have individual booking schedules in a sense. And so for this, like if I go in and look at our camping, leave it to me to kill this demo right in the last minute. We're not using what I thought we were using. No worries. And then the last thing on here was on the Franny's Farm website. I just wanted to show kind of another explanation of how the variations can be used. In their case, they use it for these different pre-rolls. And then they also have things like subscriptions, restrictions, coupons, or sorry, quantity discounts based on certain things. Linked products shows like the cross-sell and the upsell concept, and then inventory management again if that was set up in place. So with that, I will end it. If there aren't any questions, thanks for hanging in there, everybody. If anybody wants to buy a set of dented Fittipaldi aluminum wheels, hit me up. I'll make you a good deal. And other than that, thanks. Oh, there was one question that came in through Olivia that I'll answer. So I didn't see Stripe listed here as an option. How do I add that? So if you just go and do like WooCommerce Stripe add-on, you'll get, and that's the best way to find any of these little add-ons. You can do it through the through like the WooCommerce interface, but you can also just go straight up and just Google it. And so Stripe in this case is a free download. You would download it. You would go ahead and purchase it. It's going to run you through that same exact process that we had before. It's going to let me download that. While that's going on, I'll jump back over and I'll show you how this works. So we'll download the plugin. And we'll go over here to plugins. And we're going to add this Stripe plugin just like any other plugin. It just happens to be specific to WooCommerce. Come on, plugin screen. Well, anyway, you would, oh, there it is. All right, we would add a new plugin. We would upload a plugin. We would choose that Stripe plugin and install it. We would activate it. And now when I go over to WooCommerce settings, payments, come on, payments tab, there we go. Now we get all of these other options. So now we've got not just a Stripe option for credit cards we can turn on, but we've got all these other additional Stripe things that get looped in with it. And then we can go and when you go say set up, now we've got specifics about the setup for Stripe and how to go and integrate this. And so obviously you need a Stripe account, and then you need to go and you need to do certain steps to allow the site to talk to your Stripe account. They try to make it pretty easy. Stripe and PayPal are the two easiest. Once you get into Authorize.net and some of these others, it can get really complex. So really appreciate everybody hanging in there. I know that this is not the easiest topic to cover, but thanks everybody. Appreciate it. Feel free to throw feedback to me, to Dwayne, or a Google review or something like that if you want to. So thanks everybody. See ya.